Chapter 1. The Dream Beneath the Sand. In the beginning there was only dust, and the quiet hum of destiny, unborn and unseen. Tatooine sleeps beneath twin suns, scorched and hollowed, its dunes shifting like the memory of a wound. Nothing grows. Here, nothing soft survives. Yet in the marrow of this desert, the Force did something it had not done in an age. It whispered into the womb of a slave, and there, unbidden and unfathered, a child began to stir, not by love nor lineage, but by a will ancient and blind. They named him Anakin, but the Force did not. The Force knew him by other names: wound, balance, storm, seed, and end. He was not born, he was summoned. He ran through the junk fields of Mos Espa, feet bleeding on metal shards, laughter innocent and hollow. Beside him, broken droids twitched in the sand, echoes of a future he would build and destroy. He built things to make sense of the silence. He raced pods to defy the sky. And when he looked up, he saw stars not with wonder, but with hunger. Even then, he did not belong to the sand. His mother, Shmi, bore no illusion. She did not understand the Force, but she felt it, the weight of his birth, the strange calm in his eyes, the dreams he did not speak aloud. At night, when the wind howled like dying gods, she would place her hand on his chest and wonder what had moved within her, and why the stars had sent it. In the shadows of this forgotten planet, the Force brooded. It had broken its own laws to create him, or perhaps had merely been used. For far beyond the outer rim, in temples of dark stone and alchemical rot, ancient Sith rituals had once reached into the nether, crying for vengeance upon the light. And something heard them, something that had no voice, only design. And then he came. The Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn, robed in destiny and doubt. He saw the boy not as a curiosity, but as an answer, a vergence in the Force. He called him a place where the current gathered like a whirlpool. Qui-Gon too dreamed of prophecy, of the one who would bring balance to the Force. He had read it in old scrolls, whispered to him by voices that the Jedi no longer trusted. He tested the child. Blood, numbers. The midichlorians sang louder in Anakin than in any Jedi in history, even Yoda. But Qui-Gon did not understand what the Force had truly done. Anakin's eyes were too clear, his spirit too old. He loved easily, but possessed deeply. Already he feared loss. Already the galaxy turned round him like a wheel seeking center. He did not yet know his name was already a binding. When he stood before the Jedi Council, they felt the tremor. Not just power, destiny. And destiny always came wrapped in death. Yoda frowned. Mace Windu watched in silence. Too old, they said. Too afraid. But the truth was simpler. They were too late. The Sith had already returned in the shadows of Coruscant's spires. Darth Sidious smiled behind kind eyes. He felt the same vergence. He felt it before the Jedi did. He saw the future opening like a tomb, and Anakin's face was etched into the lid. The boy left his mother behind. He cried, but not loudly. He felt guilt, but not fully. Part of him was already breaking. In that goodbye, the dark side found its first crack. Shmi watched him go, her arms empty, her shadow long, and in her heart something ended. The ship rose. The stars opened. The dream began, but not the dream of a hero, no dream of fire, of metal, of screams behind sealed masks. A dream of starships that crushed planets beneath their wake. A dream of hands outstretched in love, and closing into fists, the chosen. One was not a title, it was a warning. In the Jedi Temple, Anakin looked upon holocrons and statues. He listened to teachings recited for 1,000 years. But his soul wandered, his dreams turned red. He missed his mother. He saw her dying over and over. He told no one. The Force did not speak in words. It spoke in visions. And for Anakin, those visions never brought peace, only omens, and far beneath the temple. In sealed vaults and ancient archives, the older truths were buried. Tales of virginses, of dark lords who once tried to birth avatars through the Force, of unnatural life, of wills that did not obey the cosmic balance. The Jedi did not look beneath the surface, but the Sith did, and the desert never forgets. Tatooine still dreamed of the boy. Junk still rusted. Droids still lay in pieces. And Shmei, her nights were restless. Sometimes she heard voices in the wind. Not his voice, another, a whisper. You gave him to us. The suns never set at the same time. One always watched. One always waited. And Anakin, now among the stars, would never truly escape the sand, because Tatooine was not just his home, it was the place of origin, and all origin stories are written in blood, and the Force, ancient and cold, had just begun to move again. The boy dreams, the stars breathe, the war has not yet begun, but it has already been lost. Chapter 2, The Song of the Midichlorian Sin, Every Drop of Blood. A choir sings quiet, ancient, unending. They are the smallest of voices, unseen, unnamed by most, and yet they carry the oldest music in the galaxy, MIDI, CHLORIANS. Not myths, not magic, not invention. They are the bridge between flesh and the Force, the gatekeepers of will and wonder. The Jedi once studied them with reverence, when reverence was still allowed, but reverence turned to doctrine. Doctrine turned to blindness, and in that blindness the echoes were lost. But the Force does not forget. When Qui-Gon Jinn pricked the boy's arm, he did not expect the answer. The reader blinked, confused. The numbers did not make sense. Over 20,000. Higher than Yoda, higher than any being recorded by the Order's sacred machines. He did not say it aloud then. But in that moment, Qui-Gon believed, not in hope, but in pattern. The prophecy of the chosen one, exiled from Jedi libraries, whispered by mystics and Force seers, long silenced, sang through this boy's blood. Not all Jedi believed in the prophecy, fewer understood it, but Qui-Gon had always walked the edge of the code. He listened where others recited. He questioned where others bowed. And when he looked into Anakin's eyes, he did not see a student. He saw destiny, sharp and unfinished. The Council did not trust what they could not measure. They felt the storm within the child, how his attachments clung like roots, how his fear was not yet tamed. They sensed the future clouded. Yoda's eyes narrowed, not from doubt, but from dread. He is dangerous, he said. But what the Council did not say aloud, what none dared admit, was the shape they saw in the fog. They saw fire, they saw metal, they saw Vader, and still the decision was made. Not by votes or peace, but by urgency. War brewed in the corners of the galaxy. Sidious played both sides behind curtains of gold. The Trade Federation's armies rose like silent insects. A queen begged for aid. Time, ever cruel, ran out. OBI-1 protested. He was not ready to train a child, but his master was dying, and dying. Men speak truths they do not understand. Train him, And so it was done. Anakin became a Padawan, and the song in his blood continued to sing. But it was not the only song, deep within the Jedi Temple. In the Hall of Insight, holocrons older than Republic memory waited in silence. Some held the thoughts of long-dead masters, others, secrets the Order no longer discussed. One crystal, cracked and shadowed, spoke of a Sith Lord who once believed he could create life through the Force, not through love, not through family, but through will. Darth Plagueis, his studies erased from the archives, his name never spoken in council, but his work whispers say it touched the fabric of the Force itself. Some believed he succeeded, that he reached into the current and rewrote it, that he summoned a child. No Jedi ever proved it, no Jedi ever tried, but Sith do not require proof, only outcome, and in Anakin's veins, something moved that no Jedi fully understood. He learned quickly, too quickly. His instincts were not just talent, they were memory. His reflexes belonged to a warrior long dead. His connection to the Force was not coxed, it obeyed. When he flew, the stars bent around him. When he fought, the blade became extension, not tool. But beneath all brilliance, the hunger remained. He missed his mother. He feared for her. He dreamed of losing her again and again. The Jedi taught detachment, but Anakin felt too deeply. He loved too hard, and what he could not love, he controlled. What he could not control, he feared. What he feared, he would destroy. Obi-Wan tried. He did. But he was not Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon's spirit, wherever it had gone, remained silent. Sometimes, at night, Anakin would wake from dreams, sweating, heart racing. He would whisper her name, not Padme, not Obi-Wan, his mother. The bond had never broken, and the Force felt it. On Coruscant, in the Palace of Shadows, Sidious watched, patient, amused. He did not rush the storm. He simply fed it. He guided the fear. He watered the loneliness. And all the while, the boy grew stronger, a weapon sharpening itself. The Jedi believed they were guiding a chosen one, but they were feeding a question. The galaxy could not answer. What if the prophecy was misread? What if balance did not mean victory? What if balance meant destruction? Light and dark in perfect symmetry. Death to both. End to all. Could the Force have created Anakin not to save the Jedi, but to end them? The holocrons never said. The old scrolls ended in ash, and the midichlorians never spoke aloud, but they sang. And in that song was a mourning, a preparation, a reckoning. Anakin smiled in training, bowed before masters, laughed with Parb. But his blood had already decided he would not be bound. He would not be denied. He would not be saved. The Force watchers, the prophecy titans, the chosen one has begun to choose. Chapter 3: The Silence Between the Blades. There is a moment before all wars begin, quiet, stretched, holy. That is when destinies are decided, and no one notices the knife until it sings. The Republic paraded peace as its crown, but it was a hollow jewel filled with rust and rot. The Jedi, cloaked in ceremony and blindness, had become generals without knowing it. And the chosen one, still just a boy on the edge of manhood, was learning not through serenity, but through battle. The galaxy was shifting, and no one felt the tilt more than Anakin Skywalker. He was older now, taller, his braid long, his eyes sharp. He fought not like a student, but like a storm trapped in human form. He led missions others failed, disobeyed orders with success. Obi-Wan scolded, Anakin smiled. It was always a smile born from certainty, not humility, but certainty is a cousin to arrogance, and arrogance is the favorite child of the dark. The Jedi trained him in the forms. They taught the code. They offered discipline. But none could offer peace, not the kind Anakin craved. For still, he dreamed of the sand of his mother's hands, of separation carved by fate. Each meditation ended with a scream, and in the spaces between battle and prayer, he grew restless. He was not alone. Across the galaxy, another figure stirred. Count Dooku, once Jedi, now something else. He had abandoned the Order not for greed, but for truth, a truth buried in centuries of rot. He saw the Jedi had become lapdogs. He saw the Republic ruled by money and illusion. And somewhere beyond the veil, he found a master who showed him what lay beneath the light. Darth Sidious, the Sith, had not returned. They had never left. Dooku gathered systems, armies. He became He created a phantom core separatists seeking freedom. And into this web of war, Anakin was thrown. The Battle of Geonosis was not an accident. It was a summoning, a test of fire. Jedi fell by the dozen. Droids marched in legions. The first clash of clone and lightsaber. 1,000 screams baptized a new era. And in the dust of Geonosis, something shattered forever. The Clone Wars had begun. The Jedi Keepers of Peace became commanders. They sat in war councils. They bled for a cause they barely understood, but they did not question. They obeyed, and that was their first death. Anakin was knighted, not because he was ready, but because the galaxy demanded it. The Council feared him, yes, but war needs warriors, not questions. He was given rank. He was given troops. He was given a title, General Skywalker, and though he wore the robes of the Jedi, he moved with the instincts of something else. He did not guard peace. He commanded destruction. Across battlefield after battlefield, the Chosen One carved victory with fire. His droid R2 watched silently. His apprentice Ahsoka Tano followed with confusion and loyalty. She saw the cracks. She felt the tremors. But she too was young. She too believed, and Padmé still believed. Their love was a secret, a sin, a sweetness carved into shadow. In the halls of the Senate, she was a voice for diplomacy. In the chambers of their apartment, she was his sanctuary. But Anakin did not love gently. He loved like gravity-consuming, desperate, possessive, and in his dreams she died, over and over again. He did not know it yet. But those dreams were not just visions. They were offers. The Force, pulled between light and dark, was beginning to fracture around him. Like glass beneath pressure, reality was twisting. Time whispered backwards. Memory bled into prophecy, and Mustafar, in one vision, he stood in fire. On Coruscant, in another, he saw his child born. Then gone, and always, her Padmé dying in screams. He searched for answers. The Jedi gave none. They told him to let go. But Anakin was made not to let go. He was made to change things. That was what the Force had written in his blood. Obi-Wan grew distant. Yoda watched with sorrow. Mace Windu narrowed his gaze like a blade. They sensed the danger. But they were too late to prevent it, because someone else had already begun to guide him. Chancellor Palpatine, a friend, a mentor, a quiet serpent coiled in robes of gold. He listened. He understood. He spoke of power, not as a temptation, but as a duty. To save those you love, to protect the things no Jedi would dare preserve. He whispered of a force larger than the Jedi allowed, and Anakin listened, not out of greed, but out of need, because the silence between blades had grown too loud. The prophecy, too unclear, and the only person who spoke like he knew the truth was the one person the Jedi never questioned. Sidious. Fell, beheaded by Anakin's own hand, at the Chancellor's command. No trial, no mercy. And something inside Anakin shuddered, then smiled. He deserved it. The war deepened. Jedi died. Clones obeyed. Secrets hardened. And the lines between peace and order, darkness and duty, love and fear all began to blur. The Force watched, and the silence grew, because silence is not absence, it is preparation, and somewhere in the dark, a voice without form whispered again, "He is ready." Chapter 4, A war written in ash war is not chaos, it is choreography. And the Clone Wars were a dance composed long before the first shot was fired, from Kamino's storm-racked labs to the blood-stained grass of Felucia. Soldiers were grown, not born each bred to die for a cause they did not choose. The Jedi called them allies, the Sith called them tools, and the Force called them echoes. Anakin Skywalker led them like a storm front. He had become more than a general. He was fire given form, a legend whispered between legions. They followed him not out of duty, but belief. And belief is more dangerous than command. Obi-Wan watched the boy he once trained become something vast, but he could not stop it. No one could. The war had twisted the Jedi into warriors, and Anakin had become its perfect blade. Victory followed him. So did ruin. On every world he left ghosts. In every triumph, something was lost. Compassion shrank, mercy withered. The line between protection and domination blurred. He told himself he fought to end the war, to protect Pam, to save the Republic. But deeper inside, a darker voice had begun to speak. You deserve more. Palpatine fed that voice with gentle truths. He spoke of the Jedi's hypocrisy, their fear of power, their betrayal of the Republic. He offered stories, old, forbidden, of a Sith who learned to prevent death, to stop time, to shape fate. Darth Plagueis the wise. Anakin listened. The Force around him had grown loud. Visions came without warning. Pobm weeping, dying, torn. From him he could not breathe without fearing her loss. The Jedi offered silence. Palpatine offered answers. He drew closer. The Council grew wary. They granted Anakin a seat, but not the title of Master. It was insult, not oversight. A spark became a blaze. Pride and prophecy clashed inside him. He saw only betrayal. The war worsened. Grievous slaughtered worlds. Sidious controlled both sides. Dooku was dead, but his purpose complete. The Jedi stretched thin. Clones questioned nothing. And above it all, Palpatine waited. Order 66 was not just a command. It was a ritual, a spell cast across 1,000,000 minds, planted years before, buried deep in flesh and bone. Each clone, unknowingly enchanted, held death behind his eyes. A single phrase would break the seal, and Anakin was the key. He did not yet know the truth, but he knew the war was a lie. He could feel it. He saw Jedi sent to die, council members speaking in riddles, enemies reappearing like shadows. He began to believe they were plotting against him, and she watched him change. She loved him still, but feared him now. He held her too tightly. spoke of nightmares too vividly, promised safety like a threat. She wept alone, Ahsoka left the Order. Anakin felt her departure like a wound. She had seen the cracks in the Jedi, the failure to protect, the blindness. She walked away, and the temple grew colder without her. The holocrons were quiet, the ancient prophecies silent, but the war spoke for them, and Anakin listened. He was tired, afraid, alone, a hero worshipped by all, yet trusted by none, and Sidious waited. Soon the final move would be made. Soon the Republic would die not with fire, but with thunderous applause. And in that moment, Anakin would be offered a choice, and the galaxy would be offered a funeral. Chapter 5. The shadows that wear your face, beneath every face lies another, waiting to be chosen. And some shadows do not follow, they lead. Anakin dreamed of fire, podmen dying, Obi-Wan turning his back. He awoke with sweat on his brow and fury in his chest. The Jedi told him to let go, but letting go felt like murder. Palpatine whispered louder. He spoke of fear, of control, of the power to prevent death. He named the Force not as harmony, but as a weapon, one the Jedi refused to wield. Anakin was torn between duty and desire, between truth and treason. The Council sensed it. They tasked him to spy on the Chancellor. But to Anakin, it felt like betrayal. "You want me to betray a friend," he said. They already had. The lines blurred. Jedi or traitor, savior or tyrant. Podm's belly grew with unborn life, and in Anakin's dreams, that life vanished into screams. He would not lose her, not again. Palpatine revealed himself, calm, precise. Not just Chancellor, but Sith Lord, Darth Sidious, the architect of war, the voice behind the storm. He did not hide. He offered, "Join me." Anakin hesitated. He ran to the Council. Mace Windu moved to act, lightsaber drawn, Jedi Masters at his side. But fear clouded everything. Sidious struck with lightning and death, and Anakin chose. Blade met wrist. A scream, a fall. Mace Windu vanished into the night, and Darth Vader was born, not in armor, not in fire, but in choice. An oath sworn not to peace, but to possession. "I will do whatever you ask." The Jedi Temple burned. Children fell. The Chosen One became the butcher, and the prophecy wept. Chapter 6. The Temple of Smoke and Blood temples are not built to last. They are built to burn when their gods fall silent. The Jedi Temple stood as a monument to peace. It fell in silence, blade by blade. Vader walked its halls with fire in his veins and death in his eyes. The clones followed, masks blank, orders absolute. The younglings hid, he found them, they begged. He did not hesitate. Above the spires, turned black with smoke. The archives burned, holocrons cracked, statues shattered beneath boots once raised. In reverence, the Force screamed through the walls, but no Jedi heard it. Elsewhere, clones turned. Across the galaxy, Order 66 was spoken. Jedi died, mid-breath, in forests, in skies, in temples carved into ice. Trust turned to betrayal. Padawans cried out. Masters fell alone. Yoda felt it. He dropped his cane and gasped. Obi-Wan barely escaped. His clone commander blinked, turned, fired. Betrayal written in protocol, not hate. Survival became exile. The Jedi were no more. Padme searched for answers. Anakin was gone. Her womb grew heavy. Her heart cracked. When Obi-Wan returned, he brought ashes. "Your husband is Vader." She did not believe it. She followed him to Mustafar, and there, in fire, she found the truth. Anakin stood waiting his yellow, voice broken. He spoke of empire, of order, of peace by control. She begged him to stop. He saw only betrayal. Obi-Wan stepped forward. Blade met blade. Brother turned on brother. And in the flames, the Republic died. Chapter 7: The Empire of the Broken Sky. When the sky breaks, it does not fall, shatters into silence, and the stars forget their names. Mustafar bled fire. The duel echoed across ash. Obi-Wan wept as he struck. Limbs severed, skin burned. Anakin screamed not in pain, but in betrayal. He reached with melted fingers. Obi-Wan turned away. "I loved you," and he left him to die. Pom broke with him. Her heart collapsed. She gave birth in the shadow of War-2 twins, light and dark, boy and girl. She named them Hope and vanished into silence. Her body could not bear the galaxy he built. Palpatine came. He found the ruin of Vader and dragged it into rebirth. Metal forged where flesh once was. Breath became a machine. The scream that followed split the Force, not of agony but of becoming. Darth Vader rose. The Jedi were ashes. The Senate cheered. Palpatine became Emperor by thunderous applause. He spoke of peace, of victory, of safety, but his voice was shadow, his breath a curse. Stormtroopers replaced clones. Fear replaced freedom. The stars bent to a single will. The Empire was not born, it spread like a wound across the galaxy. The Death Star began as a whisper, and the twins were hidden. Leia to royalty, Luke to sand. Vader did not know. He hunted survivors, choked truth from throats, broke sabers in his fist. But still the dream returned, Podme weeping, fire all around. The past never left, and the sky above Coruscant cracked not from bombs, but from silence. A new darkness had begun. Chapter 8: The Children of the Vanished Light. When stars die, their light walks for ages, searching for eyes that remember. Luke Skywalker grew beneath twin suns, a child of dust, a dreamer, a boy who stared at the sky and saw something calling. He did not know his name carried weight, that his blood burned with prophecy. Leia Organa was raised in halls of power, a princess wrapped in duty, fire behind her words, steel behind her smile. She felt the tremors, the quiet wrongness beneath. The Empire's order. She learned to fight in silence. They were strangers, yet the Force whispered in both. Obi-Wan watched from shadow. Ben to the locals. He aged behind regret. He kept Anakin's saber close, as if it still bled. Each day he listened for danger. Each night he whispered apologies to ghosts. Yoda hid in the swamp. Madness wrapped around wisdom. He waited for children who might never come. The Jedi were not gone, but buried. The rebellion began in sparks. Saboteurs whispered plans, stolen. Codes Bail Organa wove threads. Mon Mothma spoke truths behind closed doors. Leia carried secrets inside encrypted droids. And then the plans. The Death Star, a weapon to end questions. Leia ran, Vader pursued. The stars held their breath, and on Tatooine, destiny stirred. A message hidden in blue light. A call to an old man. A path to a young boy. The Force began to move, and so did fate. Chapter 9: The Path of the Shadows. So not all who walk the light escape. the shadow cast behind them. Luke Skywalker found the blade of his father buried in sand and story. Obi-Wan's voice spoke of guardians and peace, of a war long buried, of an Anakin Skywalker, but not the truth, not the fall. They fled Tatooine. The desert released him. The stars opened like wounds. A farm boy stepped aboard a smuggler ship. Han Solo, faithless. Chewbacca, bound by honor. A rogue and his shadow. Fate pulled them into the current dot. Leia waited in chains. Aboard the Death Star, steel hummed with silence. Vader walked its halls like a curse. Obi-Wan felt him. Once brother, now predator. They dueled in silence. Sparks spoke where words failed. Blue and red crossed like prophecy. And when Obi-Wan fell, he became more than flesh. He whispered from the Force, and Luke heard him. The escape, the battle, the trench run. Luke flew with death behind him and hope ahead. And when the moment came, he heard a voice, a memory, a guide. Use the Force. He closed his eyes, fired, and the Death Star died. But Vader lived. The boy who had never known war had now begun one, and the galaxy remembered the name Skywalker. Chapter 10. The Empire beneath the skin. The shadow is not always cast from without. Sometimes it grows from within. The Death Star fell, but the Empire did not bleed. It adapted, hardened, shifted beneath its armor. Palpatine watched from his throne, not angered but amused. Failure was a teacher, fear the tool. The boy had a name, Skywalker, and the Force trembled at its echo. Vader stood silent at his master's side. The face beneath his mask remembered, a name buried, a life lost, but the dark side drowned such weakness. Or so he told himself. Luke trained with ghosts. Obi-Wan's voice, distant, a guide without touch, a father without truth. Yoda waited on Dagobah, hidden in the rot of an ancient world. He saw the boy's fear. He saw Anakin's echo, and he feared the mirror would shatter again. Leia lead, Han doubted. The rebellion struck and scattered again. A war of sparks in a storm of fire, in the trees of Endor, in the fields of Hoth, in the sky above. Bespin the Empire moved like smoke. And then betrayal. Lando's holes closed like teeth. Han fell into the carbon tomb. Leia screamed, and Luke arrived too late. Then the duel, son against father. Truth struck like lightning. I am your father. The blade fell, the hand with it, and the light dimmed. Chapter 11. The Swamp of Prophecies. Visions bloom in the rot where truth has drowned. Luke fled to Dagobah, wounded in body, shattered in spirit. The mist welcomed him like a grave. Yoda waited small, ancient, and burdened by memory. The boy asked for wisdom, but wisdom had cost them everything. Yoda spoke in riddles, of fear, of anger, of the path to the dark side. Luke heard, but did not listen. He was his father's son. And in the darkness of that swamp, the past clawed its way to the surface. He entered the cave. The air turned thick, cold, alive. He faced a shadow with his own face. A mask split open, and behind Vader's visage his own eyes stared back. He emerged, changed. Not wiser, only warned. Leia led battles, her spirit unbroken. Han remained frozen in steel. The rebellion endured, but time thinned its hope. The Empire built again, in secret, in silence. Another Death Star, larger, crueler, unfinished yet fatal. Palpatine called, not with words, but with the Force itself. A trap woven across systems. Vader waited. The sun would come, the Master would test, and the prophecy would spiral. Again, Chapter 12, the throne of all lies it, is not the blade that corrupts, but the seat from which it is offered. Luke surrendered, not to fear, not to weakness, but to destiny. He turned himself in to Vadercom, silent, determined. He believed there was still good in his father, but belief is not a weapon. It is a wound that refuses to close. Vader walked beside him, silent beneath the armor, listening to echoes he thought long buried. A name spoken softly, Anakin, but the name did not fit anymore. It was a dream that died in fire. They arrived at the throne. Palpatine waited, cloaked in decay, smiling with teeth, two white eyes too deep. He welcomed Luke as if he were home, as if all this had already happened before. The throne room spun with lies. The Death Star hummed with power. The fleet gathered above Endor, unaware that doom had already coiled around their throats. Palpatine showed Luke the battle. Let him feel the deaths as if they were his own. Pain twisted into rage, rage into fire, and fire into the grip of his saber. Strike me down, the Emperor whispered. Take your place. Vader stepped forward. Luke screamed. The duel began, father and son, hate and hope, and below it all, the Force trembled. DD extra line, CHRPT 13, the silence after the storm, when the blade stops. The echo begins. The throne room burned with the clang of sabers. Luke struck fast. Vader struck harder. Sparks lit the dark. The Emperor laughed, a sound older than stars, feeding on their fury. Luke's strength surged. He matched his father's blows, matched, then overwhelmed. In a final burst of fury, he severed Vader's hand. Sparks sprayed from the stump. Metal fell where flesh once was. Luke stood over him, panting, saber raised. The Emperor smiled. Yes, he hissed. Let the hate flow. Luke saw his own hand flushened, the mechanical ruin he had created. His father's fall, his own path, the mirror complete. He cast the saber aside. I am a Jedi, he said. Palpatine's smile twisted to a snarl. Lightning erupted from his fingers, pure dark-side wrath. It struck Luke, lifted him, shattered his body with agony. He cried out, not in anger. In faith, Vader watched his son die, watched the only light left in his shadowed life vanish, and in that instant the name Anakin Skywalker awoke. The mask turned. The Emperor did not see. The arms reached. The lightning turned, and Palpatine fell, screaming, into the abyss. Chapter 14. The ashes of the mass, the fire within, does not die. It chooses silence. The Emperor was gone, cast into the pit. His screams still echoed, but they faded into nothing. Darkness recoiled. The throne trembled. The storm had passed, but the damage was done. Vader collapsed. Luke ran to him, knelt beside the broken machine. The mask sparked. The breath faltered. Inside the armor, the man struggled to return. Anakin Skywalker had come back too late. Help me take this mask off, he whispered. Luke hesitated. You'll die. Nothing can stop that now. The mask came free, and beneath it a scarred face, a pale, burned man with eyes that no longer belonged to the Sith. They were tired, sad, but at peace. Tell your sister. You were right, he said, and then he was gone. not in fire, not in fury, but in peace. The machine was silent. The throne was broken. The chosen one lay still, not as Vader, not as the Jedi he once was, but something in between. A wound in the Force, slowly closing, and outside the stars watched, as if they, too, had been holding their breath. Chapter 15, The Burning of the Dead Ash, is the final language of the fallen. The forest moon was silent. No blasters, no engines, no war. Only the crackle of flame beneath a pyre of wood and metal dot. Luke stood alone. He had built it himself, every branch, every stone, every piece of the world bearing witness to the death of a legend. The armor lay still upon the fire, stripped of darkness, emptied of its spirit. Vader was no more. He lit the flame. It caught slowly, then grew. Orange light danced across his face. He said nothing. No words could hold what had passed between them. Not father, not monster, not Jedi, not Sith. Something else. Something ancient. Something lost. He watched the fire consume the armor. The breath mask melted. The black limbs curled. The helmet blackened and cracked. But within the smoke there was no fear. Only release. High above, the stars stirred in the Force. Something shifted. A wound closed. A prophecy fulfilled. But quietly, without glory, without parades. Just ash, just flame, just silence. And in that silence, the galaxy turned. Chapter 16. Shadows in the celebration, even light, darkness lingers. The Empire had fallen, the rebellion cheered, stars sang. Peace seemed near, but celebration is the breath before the storm. Leia mourned. Her brother lost, her father's secret buried in fire and ash, her own path uncertain, shadowed by what was and what might have been. Luke stood at her side, heavier than his years. The weight of legacy pressed upon him. He knew the dark was not finished. It never is. Across the galaxy, old whispers stirred. Sith echoes, hidden cults, fractured remains of an empire. The darkness bided time, and in the Force, a new voice began to whisper, not of hope, not of light, but of balance. The prophecy was not an end, it was a beginning. Chapter 17. The quiet between stars, between the light and dark, lies a silence, deep and eternal. The galaxy breathed. Battles ceased. Planets healed. Yet beneath the peace, unrest simmered. The Force itself paused, waiting for what was to come. Luke journeyed far, seeking knowledge lost to time. Ancient temples hidden in shadow, holocrons whispering secrets forgotten. He learned that balance was not a place, but a path narrow and perilous. Leia rebuilt a broken republic, weaving new alliances from old wounds. She carried the weight of legacy and loss, guiding a people who feared the return of darkness. Far away, in forgotten corners, a shadow stirred. A child born of chaos and pain. A new threat wrapped in mystery. The cycle turned again. The stars held their breath, and the Force whispered once more. Chapter 18. The Last Prophecy. The final truth is neither light nor dark, but the void between. Whispers spoke of a child neither Jedi nor Sith born to tip the scales. A balance un chosen, yet inevitable. The Force awaited its reckoning. Luke faced the weight of destiny, knowing the path was never clear. The past haunted him, but the future beckoned, shrouded in shadow and light. Leia's resolve hardened, her heart torn between hope and fear. The galaxy's fate balanced on fragile threads woven by those who dared to dream, and somewhere, beyond stars and time, the Force watched, not as judge, but as witness. The cycle was unbroken, the story unending, the prophecy eternal.